Everyone, Norm from Tested here, and as you can see, we've taken the glass off the display shelves here in anticipation of Prop Store's Entertainment Memorabilia live auction happening August 26th and 27th. And today we're going to take a look at some of the puppets that are part of this auction. These range from hand puppets, from wire-controlled puppets, to also motion-controlled and electronically controlled puppets from some great films, some even films that Adam has worked on. Let's take a look at Weebo from Flubber. So Brandon, today we're looking at some of the puppets that you guys have as a part of this amazing auction, this collection of wide range of puppets from hand-controlled, stop motion, and also electronically controlled. Let's start with this Weebo. This is from Flubber.
Yeah, this is one of the hero Weebo puppets. It was a fully motion-controlled puppet. You know, they put it on a motion control rig, and then it's filled with motors and servos and mechanisms to make it operate. I mean, you can see that's the original connector pin.
Yeah.
With about 30 different points of connection in there. It's been restored with just a little bit of its original functionality. So there are some lights and gizmos to play with here. Do you want to give it a go?
Oh, can I?
Here, let me just switch that on for you.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's so cool.
Do that switch, you'll get the lights on the front, and then if you just turn each one of those dials.
Oh, wow, and it's 100% an analog control. How much I'm turning the dial here. And so an operator would be able to puppet this for personality, for a character to match the performance.
Yes, yeah. You can hear how loud it is. Obviously, you don't get that in the final film, but there's so much going on with it.
Absolutely. Oh, wow, the lenses. And it's so much of this, because this control box, I can see, I'm going to turn this off now, is just 4 dials, right?
Yeah,
and so the operator has to be able to manipulate it in a way to synchronize multiple dials at once, which you can see some operators for some of the puppets make it, they kind of design the controls for the animation, like this.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of art in puppeteering itself, and it's one thing to have a mechanism that will perform, but it's another thing to have a performer who can perform and can actually use that thing to bring a character to life. And I mean, this raptor foot is from the original Jurassic Park, made at Stan Winston Studios, and obviously the majority of the skin has been stripped off of this, but I think this was actually a costume foot. A performer would put this on just like a shoe, and then the dinosaur foot comes out in front of their toes. But you can see the cables are still functional. And so by pulling these levers, actually, this is on a spring, and this is, you remember the shot in the film where the raptor
tapping, yes.
Yeah. So if I was a better puppeteer, I'd make that tap for you on the floor. And then these just have a basic sort of curl mechanism that can be used probably in the walking of the thing, or just for a static shot, just to bring it to life a little bit.
Right.
And again, it's like they're always marrying art and technology. So you have to have the technology element of this that's going to give it the motion, but you've also got to have the art. I mean, look at the claw, the paintwork on the claw, and the little bit of foam latex skin that remains. It's beautiful. I think just the claw is a great piece, And so
totally.
The whole foot is...
And there's also a lot of art in the design of the articulation, the spring work, so that you have that bounce back. And it's a collaboration because someone's wearing this while another operator is animating just the toes.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Some other characters, of course, of all different scales. You have stop motion puppets. I recognize Zero from Nightmare.
Yeah, Nightmare seems to be one of those films that everyone just loves, and hasn't lost an ounce of popularity. We've always had a lot of interest in the puppets from Nightmare specifically. I think this is the first Zero we've ever handled, and it's neat. It's got a little aluminum mount on the bottom where it would have been put on a rig, and there's just a little piece of string coming through it. And I think by pulling that little piece of string, puppeteer could make his head nod a little bit. The one sad thing about Zero is he has lost his pumpkin nose. He's supposed to have a pumpkin nose a la Rudolph. That's no longer present, but it is an original Zero puppet from the film, and as I say, has that armature on the bottom, indicating that it was used and mounted at some point, which is cool.
Awesome. And this is from Labyrinth.
Yes, so that's Sir Didymus, another real fan favorite. Labyrinth as a title, very cult, very beloved by kids of the 80s. And Sir Didymus is a super memorable part of it. This was a puppet head, and so there's actually like a silk sock or stocking that comes out of the bottom of it. Puppeteer puts his arms through and just, old school traditional hand puppet, a la the Jim Henson Muppets, right?
Yep. And then, of course, creepy, but also full-on horror. You got aliens, Alien Queen here.
Yes.
I've seen a couple different versions of this pop up. Which version is this?
They did make a few. This is maybe one of the few that we've seen that was fully mechanized with the cables. You can see the cables that are coming out of the back here, and you can see some of the mechanisms that go into the shoulders and then down in the large arms and also in the small arms. And one of the cables is still attached. I think if I operate this bicycle controller, you can see the jaw mechanism does still work. And you know, there's a number of cables on the back of this. I think originally it had quite a few mechanisms. This is the only one that's still connected. Obviously, you wouldn't want to manipulate any of the foam latex skins at this point. They're very dried and largely missing from the arms. But like the crown, the head, the face, these are all cast urethane, so they've actually held up quite well. And you know, when you're manipulating the jaw there, you're not stretching any foam latex or anything, so it's safe to do so. And like you're saying, they made a few of these. I think a couple were what you'd call like floppy versions or throw around versions for when it falls down the airlock. But this one has got the cables, which indicates it's probably used in close-ups. You can see there's like some fishing line on it where they were obviously just rigging it up to do different things at different times. And obviously it's got the big urethane tail as well.
Yeah, one of the amazing things I love about creature design is they take the elements of the familiar, you know, bipedal design that we all understand how animals that we see in the real world kind of move, and then can add all sorts of fantastical elements and even grotesque elements. Rick Baker was a master of that, and you guys did a big auction with him. You have a creature here from Men in Black 3.
Yeah, they made some amazing stuff for Men in Black 3, and a lot of it, sadly, you never really get to see in the film. You know, they do things for those Men in Black movies where they go in the headquarters and they want to be really well dressed with just a whole bunch of different aliens from around the galaxy, and that's what this guy represents. You know, he's just a background alien, but a really cool design. I mean, Rick put together a great team of designers and artists and just kind of let them go to town on building their own aliens. And so this guy, he's got the split face with the exposed brain, probably just a few mechanisms, maybe some servos in there just to operate the lips or something, just to give it a little bit of life if it was to appear on camera. But I think they built over 100 different aliens from that film. Wow. And some really great stuff. A lot of retro stuff playing on classic aliens and monsters of the 50s and 60s, you know, tying into the time travel element of that third movie. But it's a lovely piece of art, really.
Do you find that collectors, when they acquire these pieces, try to restore them or leave them as it is?
Sometimes. I mean, it's always a discussion. I remember seeing this piece a few years ago, and there was definitely some work that was undertaken on it. You know, originally it was not on a stand, so it had to have a custom stand made just to lock it into a good position. That's really the first part of keeping something safe, is making sure that it's not just rattling around in a box. And then I know there was some preservation and stabilization work done on the foam latex. You know, on these little arms, for example, so much of the skin is gone. If you were to recreate that, it would just be full recreation at that point. So I think the current owner found it more interesting to leave the mechanics exposed. And obviously, to me, it doesn't really detract to it. So it's such a small part of it. And what that does is just lets you see that it is a real film puppet.
Yeah.
You know, overall, the aesthetics of it, I mean, from a few feet away, it presents beautifully. You know?
Yeah, and it just allows fans to get a direct connection to not only the visual aesthetics, but also the performance of these characters, whether it's electronically controlled, hand puppeted, you know, manipulated manually in stop motion, or with wires. So cool.
Yeah, all part of the ingenuity of filmmaking, right? And just figuring out how to get an image on screen, especially in the pre-digital era, like a movie like Aliens is. It's like, okay, how are we going to do this? We know we need a full-size puppet, but we're also going to have miniature, not just one miniature. We're going to need a miniature that does this and a separate miniature that can do that. And it really shows you the logistics and the critical thinking and the thought process that goes into filmmaking and figuring out, especially visual effects, you know, how to put an image on the screen.
Right, right. Something that they built to have to work for a couple months, and now decades later, you know, still can operate. I mean, I can't imagine someone picking this up and not wanting to puppet this. It's just so cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for coming down, Norm. Good to see you as always.